Super Game Boy was an accessory released by Nintendo that allowed players to play original Game Boy games on a TV through the Super Nintendo. By hitting L and R, you can change colors, adjust borders, and there's even a couple of controller options. Even today, it's an impressive little device that was forward-thinking and creative. Digging a little deeper, here are some interesting Super Game Boy facts. Super Nintendo mouse support. When inserted into the second controller port, it's possible to use the SNES mouse to doodle on the graffiti border option, similar to the drawing program found in Mario Paint. If you take your border art seriously, this is a much better option than using the D-pad on the standard controller. You can even click both mouse buttons at the same time to open the menu. Faster gameplay. You might not notice, but Game Boy games actually run faster when played on a Super Game Boy, 2.4% faster to be specific. Therefore, the Super Game Boy isn't used by the speedrunning community. However, this was corrected with the Japan-exclusive Super Game Boy 2, along with adding a link cable port to allow for linked multiplayer gaming, a feature sorely lacking with this original version. Multiplayer support. Speaking of multiplayer, several Game Boy games were specifically developed to support multiplayer gaming when using a Super Game Boy, no link cable and no second cartridge needed. Most were fighting games, in which you simply press start on controller 2 during the character select screen, but there were even some games that supported 4 players when using a multi-tap. Bomberman, for example, was one such game, along with another Japan-exclusive title. For a list of every compatible Super Game Boy multiplayer game, I made a compilation video highlighting each one. The link to that will be in the description. Secret animations. If you wait long enough without pressing any buttons, most Super Game Boy borders feature secret idle animations. If you wanted to see them all, I also made a video showcasing each one. And I edited them with increased video speed so you don't have to tediously wait for the animation to trigger. It's a fun little Easter egg. Link will also be in the description. Exclusive Guide. With the launch of the Super Game Boy in June 1994, Nintendo published a 72-page guide that features instructions, tips, tricks, and walkthroughs. The guide also mentions putting self-imposed challenges on the player by drawing over the game screen to restrict your view. It also suggests writing notes to yourself on the border as you play, acting as reminders. It's actually pretty interesting and creative. Special Controller. Hori released a Super Game Boy controller specifically for use with this accessory. This Japan-exclusive controller featured 4 additional buttons, which makes accessing the Super Game Boy features a little more streamlined. Japan always gets the cool stuff. Analog Pocket support. If you have an analog pocket, there's a Super Game Boy core that mimics playing games using this accessory. Which is super cool because now you don't have to hunt eBay if you wanted to experience this cool accessory for yourself. You can even sync 4 Bluetooth controllers to the dock and play the 4-player compatible games. Paving the way. The Super Game Boy essentially paved the way for future plug this into that style accessories such as the N64 Transfer Pack, which allowed original Pokemon games to be played through Pokemon Stadium. And eventually the GameCube's Game Boy player, which made it possible to play all generation of Game Boy games to be easily played on a TV. Today, we're spoiled with services like the Game Boy app on Switch and previous Virtual Console releases, but the Super Game Boy was an awesome accessory back in the day. I know I was super excited about it and used it all the time. But what do you think? Did you ever use the Super Game Boy? Do you know any other interesting facts? Let me know in the comments. And if you like this Super Game Boy coverage, check out the links in the description because I have plenty more obscure Game Boy content, like how I highlighted all Game Boy Advance games that support force feedback when played on a Game Boy player. Until next time, thank you for watching and game on!